clock on the wall tells us it's time for another episode of Learn, Teach, Lead, where we explore how educators, just like you, are using innovative instructional strategies, including how to leverage AI to improve teaching and learning.
Each week, we share real classroom stories, tools, and tips to help you save time, personalize instruction, and lead with confidence.
I'm Jeanine Nostrum, an elementary school principal.
And I'm Robyn D'Angelo, an elementary school teacher. Let's get started with today's Friday debrief.
Okay, Robyn, I am excited for our fabulous moment of the week. I think that our fabulous moment might be written all over us because we both look exhausted, but that's because we just sailed in from Ellis Island. So why don't you tell us a little bit about our shared fabulous moment of the week, which had to do with our fourth graders taking a trip in from Ellis Island.
Of course, we had a simulation of Ellis Island today based on our unit in social studies, which is immigration. And the students packed their backpack, and we literally took them through the stages of what it would be like if they were coming into America from another country in the 1800s or early 1900s, and the different places they would stop, like first class or steerage. They had to go through medical checks, make believe. They had to get their passports that they created in class stamped by our wonderful police officers that came to volunteer their time. And then we went into different rooms as part of the simulation, and we really learned a lot about what it was like to come over into America during that time and to see Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty for the first time. So it was really an amazing time that the kids have, and we learned a lot.
That's great. That's great. And it's always so interesting to me to watch their expressions because, I mean, they think about going, when our kids think about going on a ship, they think about, a Disney cruise ship or, Carnival Cruise Lines. And it's quite eye-opening for them to see the travel experience that the immigrants endured when they were coming to this country. So just watching the students learn about, how things have evolved over time and what the experience was like, and how difficult it was for people to come to this country. I just thought it was an amazing experience for them, probably one they won't forget. They had a lot of fun, and that was great. I love to see kids so actively engaged in learning. Okay, today we're going back to our discussion of teacher leadership. And so last time we were together, we were exploring what makes a great teacher leader from both the teacher lens and then the administrative lens. And I really thought that it might be helpful for people to kind of hear how this whole teacher leadership loop played out in action in our school. And obviously, this idea of this loop of leadership is important to us. Why we named our channel Learn, Teach, Lead. It's a loop, and so critically important for healthy schools to thrive and to continually progress forward. So why don't you give us an example of how you see this loop playing out in your work as a teacher leader and in how our school addressed this?
Absolutely. And I truly do think it's a loop because a very important part of teaching is reflecting on what is good practice, what is working, and what is not working that needs to be refined. And to be really transparent about what this actually looks like in our school, we really truly put this in practice this year. I'll give you an example so far. Everything started when we started our PLCs in the beginning of the year, which is our professional learning communities. And that's where we as teachers came together to collaborate around our shared mission and vision.
Yeah, and I really think that these PLCs were the perfect opportunity for us to combine what was a building initiative with, the classroom level initiative. So, for example, from my perspective as the building leader, I was hoping and trying to encourage teachers to explore how we might leverage AI as a tool for, insight and for improving student outcomes, right? That was my.
We were already planning to do a PLC on growth mindset. which was the topic of interest for our staff, and how, helping students develop a growth mindset might improve our student outcomes. But there came a point when we said, well, what should we do? Should we focus on AI or should we focus on growth mindset? And so as we discussed this, we recognize that learning something new, like learning AI, because it is so new to all of us, does require a growth mindset. So pairing it was the absolute natural fit that we could have done this year. And now the PLC that we're doing this year aligns to a bigger question of how does having a growth mindset support the way in which we use AI, and what impact does that have on the student outcomes?
Yes.
And we meet once a month to discuss this as a professional learning community of teachers and administrators.
Yeah, and it's such a big question too, right? It's again, the question itself is almost a loop. Like, what kind of growth mindset do we need to have as we're adopting these AI tools? And how can we foster a growth mindset in our students? And how does AI help us get to know our students deeper? So it's like a continual cycle. And it's just been so interesting and exciting to talk about with the staff. And so why don't you tell us how you folded in our PLC work and our PDPs into and put it all into action?
Right. So we meet with our PLC each month and we talk about our growth mindset and looking at AI. And then we work that into our PD meetings. So our PDP meetings. So our PDP is another goal that we have, our professional development collaboration meetings, a goal that teachers set for themselves to do each year. And putting what we talk about into our PLC, then we take that into a big clump and try to put it into action with the teachers in our school. And I have to tell you, this year, it's been so amazing that teachers from the entire district joined in our PDP work this year. So we're all collaborating together. Yeah. And we asked ourselves, how can we enhance this instruction? How can we enhance our instruction, looking at it through an AI lens and a teacher lens, as we've been so often doing with the way that technology is rolling into our educational practices, so that students can stay at the center of everything we do. So when we come into our PDP meetings, we're starting to look at our actual data, and none of this is fabricated, made up. The teachers come with their actual student data, and they look for patterns across the class of, through a teacher lens and an AI lens. They look for skill gaps. They look for what students are struggling in. And are they struggling in the concept, or is it because we really didn't teach it clearly enough? So they're reflecting on what they're doing in the classroom. And then from there, as a PDP group, we look at bigger goals, like how can we integrate AI into this while having this growth mindset, in order for teachers to do doable classroom actions and focusing on refining what they think needs to be refined in order for the students to fill those gaps and build those intentional structures for need-based strategies in our classrooms, so that we can progress monitor, we can target instruction, but scaled through practices that are doable, and we are seeing the impact in our classroom. So in our PDP, we're discussing all of this. We're actually doing it and trying it. And the best part is our share and steal at the end, because we can share and steal from other teachers' ideas to do into their classroom. And I have to tell you, Jeanine, I actually just had somebody knock at my door 5 minutes before we started this and said, listen, I just got done with looking at the data we kind of collected during our PDP last time. Can you just give me, an example of how I can word it in AI so that it could look at students' handwriting and the spacing they're leaving between that handwriting? So the PLC, we're coming up with the ideas, we're having the mindset, but the PDPs, we're diving in and we're actually looking at things to bring back to our classroom that are doable for our teachers to help our students succeed.
Yeah, and I really loved the way the growth mindset was the foundation of all of this because the teachers here at Ridge Ranch have always been very interested in growth mindset. We had done a book study on mindset and moves. We had, been intentional about using language that fosters or encourages a growth mindset. But then to be in the role of having to apply that ourselves, like we had to apply a growth mindset towards using AI tools to help us um, assess student work, to help us plan targeted instruction. All of this kind of pressed on us to apply what we had learned about growth mindset. So it was very interesting in that way as well. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that we didn't necessarily believe in the beginning, and when I say we, it feels like the general sentiment was that we didn't necessarily believe that AI was going to do a good job at this. So we had a little bit of a skeptical mindset that we had to overcome in the beginning. And now, as we get used to it, as we gain confidence, as we experiment, as we see the impact that it's having on students, I think that was the secret sauce, right? When we started seeing the impact it was having on students, then we went back and that reinforced our curiosity, our persistence, our ability to overcome obstacles, all of those things that you need to have a growth mindset to overcome. So anyway, it's just been quite an interesting experience, and it really does feel like a loop, but in a very positive way.
Right. And you exactly stated it exactly right, because when something is new, you're always hesitant, especially when you have the students at the center of your vision and mission and their success. Everything we do is student based and student centered. So, of course, teachers are like, wait, this is something new. If this is not going to help our students
Right.
or help us to help our students, the buy in is not there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that this loop of PLC, PDP, and then taking it back out into the actual teacher's classroom and hearing from them, from the teachers. We're on the front lines every day. We're, in the classroom every day, and seeing if what we're doing in our PLC, having that mindset of to try something new, thinking about it in our PDP to come up with the new strategies we want to try, and then shifting it into our classroom to really turn this planning into practice. That's where you see that shift of the final circle of that loop, which is let's try it, because if it's going to work, that's great. But if it's not, we need to continue that loop, bring it back into our PLC, talk about it a little bit more, and come up with what we're going to do next in order for our students to be successful. And from those PDP conversations, I can tell you in our school alone, we already have had intentional strategy groups. We already have had teachers that are really trying 10-minute do nows tied directly to progress monitoring. We're starting to build and plan an academic Olympics for next week, tying in with the Olympics starting. And it's collaborative. And not only is it, again, we always think about the students are at our center, but the teachers are the ones teaching it. And it's collaborative and it's fun. And the teachers are finding that not only are the students succeeding, but they're feeling that sense of accomplishment because it's collaborative and we're bouncing ideas off of each other. And that's, I feel as a teacher, where the fun comes in and where the mission and vision comes in, because we're working together. So that loop of PLC, PDP, bring it into the classroom, refine it, revisit it, and go back to the drawing board. That's what we've always done as teachers, reflecting, right? But really staying that course is really the true part of trying something new, having that growth mindset, and working on that reflection and loop together, because that's where we see the growth.
Yeah, and it's starting to feel more like a spirograph than a loop, where the is going all over the place because now we have little pockets of teacher leadership, you know, developing. So it's not just us, trying to do this in a cyclical nature. It's us, and now we've got another teacher over here working on something, and they're spinning off into their own self-reflective practice loop, and then another person's over here, and then these two people start working together, so then we're going this way. So it's really fun to see. And I'm not sure if this episode is going to completely confuse people, just because like it's sort of hard to explain, to onlookers, I guess, who are like, wait a minute, what? Growth mindset, AI, collaboration, data driven instruction. But it's just trust us. Once you establish this process of stating a problem, exploring it together, leveraging AI, and then just going back and looking at it again in this cyclical nature, the grow that we have been talking about, it really does begin to gather its own momentum like a snowball rolling down a hill. So, yeah.
And isn't that what we say is learn, teach, and lead?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we're seeing it unfold right in our school right here with the pockets of teacher leaders
Mm-hmm.
taking on a whole new form. Because you know what the bottom line is, when you feel secure with your mission, your vision, and you have people to drive behind you, the actions that you're now going to take back into your classroom, it removes that sense of isolation and builds that sense of visible collaboration where the students always remain at the center in order to drive that growth and that success and that production inside your classroom. And a shared mindset always empowers teachers to feel connected bigger than in their classroom. We have a connection of teachers here in this building that truthfully I'm in awe, every day when I come in and they're so excited to share, what they tried in their classroom. So you have this connection of teachers taking it into their collaboration of students, so it's all in all, these little loops are forming. And next week, we're going to get into really zoning in on when you get into the classroom from the PLC, the PDP. Now you take it into the classroom, what you do there with it. So that's next week.
Absolutely. And well, Robyn, it looks like that old clock on the wall tells us it's time to wrap up another episode of Learn, Teach, and Lead, our Friday debrief. So we have shared a few lessons, unpacked a few stories, and maybe sparked a few new ideas for your classroom or your leadership journey.
As always, we hope you'll take what you've learned, teach it forward, and lead with purpose. Thanks for spending part of your week with us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.